your wealth, live on your terms. Hello and welcome to the Conversations with Experts, the show that allows you to meet, hear from, and connect with people who have expertise in different areas of life. The intention of this show is to help you create and experience your best life. I'm Millen Livis, the host of this show and financial independence mentor. Because I deeply believe that anyone has the capacity to be financially independent, I'm helping professional women become financially independent faster than they believed possible, so they can enjoy more freedom in their lives. If you want better money experiences in your future, if you want to never worry about money again and truly live your life on your terms, I have a special gift for you today. Until the end of this month, you can schedule a private, complimentary, never worry about money again consultation with me, where we will map your unique, fastest path to financial independence. The value of this consultation is $497, but it's my gift to you right now. Frankly, my schedule is quite full, so act quickly to take advantage of this opportunity. You can sign up for this consultation by going to speakwithmillen.com. Speakwithmillen.com. Okay, today we'll talk about the power of photo reading. And my amazing guest today is Marilyn Devonish. Welcome, Marilyn. Welcome.
Hi.
All right, so this is a fascinating topic. I'm very excited about this amazing guest that I have today. And you can imagine that I have a lot of questions. But before we start, let me present briefly this amazing woman, and you will see why I really feel that she is amazing. So Marilyn Devonish is the NeuroSuccess coach. She's a certified trainer of NLP, hypnosis, and timeline therapy. This is amazing skills. And she is also certified photo reading instructor, soul planner reader, future life progression instructor. So you can see why this woman just managed to get this absolutely fantastic skills, and why I'm so excited to have her today as a guest. So again, welcome, Marilyn.
Millen, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here, and hello and thank you to everyone for watching.
All right, so like I said, I have so many questions today for you, but let's start with the one that really most people maybe want to know, because I didn't know this either until I talked to you first time. So what exactly is photo reading?
In a nutshell, photo reading is an accelerated reading and learning system. So designed to help you get through written information more quickly. So the basic premise is that you are photo reading at 25,000 words per minute, and you're able to get through whole books in 5 minutes. And then you have a system and a strategy to be able to actually remember and recall what you've read. So that's photo reading in a nutshell.
Okay, tell me, because I like to know the back end, like how is it possible? How is it possible to photo read at 25,000 words per minute? How is it possible?
And you know what? And unfortunately, oh my goodness, I've been speaking this man's name for 18 years now, and he passed away last week. There's a guy called Win Wenger who's written several books, but one of them is called the Einstein Factor, and also the Genius Code. And he and the creator of photo reading had very long discussions about this. The creator of photo reading is a guy called Dr. Paul Sheely, and Win was always saying to Paul, you've got to stop telling people they can read at 25,000 words per minute. Eventually, Paul says, Win, why? Win says, because that's way too slow. And so the 25,000 is our baseline starting point. And I don't know if those of you out here have heard of a guy called Paul McKenna. When I was growing up, he was a stage hypnotist. In more recent years, he's had television shows out in the United States. And Paul and some other guys did some tests. Now, they were using a supercomputer. They were reading at speeds of up to 1 million words per minute. And then they were doing comprehension tests, and they were scoring over 70%. So 25,000 words per minute is our baseline, very slow in comparison to 1 million starting point. However, to answer your question, our brain is absolutely incredible. It can take on board massive amounts of data in the blink of an eye. And then when you're redirecting your brain, it can actually start paying attention to that data and start filtering, because we see a lot on the periphery, even though we're not consciously aware of it. So all photo reading is doing, it is tapping into a skill set that we already have, and it's showing us how to harness it in an area which is a big struggle for many people. Because I know people who don't read anymore. They do not have the time, and they are struggling just to keep up to date in terms of their work and their career and their industry. So we're just tapping into the amazing skills that we already have.
You just touched up on something that I actually wanted to bring up as well. You know, we are so bombarded with all kinds of information right now, and every time when I talk to someone, they recommend a new book or a new course, and I was like, I'm already up to here. I don't know how I can fit all this reading into my schedule. And I love to read, like on my nightstand, if you could see, I have maybe 6 books that I'm reading at the same time. And sometimes it's frustrating because I really want to finish all of them, but because I read them at the same time, like I'm halfway in all of these books. So it is a very important skill, especially right now in this age of non-stop information that we receive. And some of this is frankly garbage. So we shouldn't really spend all our time on everything that is suggested for us to learn and to read. But some of this information is very valuable. And, you know, this skill is so amazing to attain. I would love to have this skill myself. So I'm definitely listening with both ears today. So my next question, Marilyn, is how photo reading is different from speed reading. I think that's the term that I heard before, was speed reading.
Now they both have the same aim. They both want to speed up your reading and allow you to get through information in more time. The main difference for me was photo reading was speed reading. When I first learned it many years ago, was kind of process driven, and you're using various drills and techniques, and you're getting up to speeds of around 400 to 600 words per minute. And because photo reading started at 25,000 words per minute, and it's more of the whole brain, whole mind learning. So you're tapping into all of your learning styles, you're tapping into all of your multiple intelligences, and you're using your mind and brain in a completely different way. So you're learning in the flow state, as opposed to kind of going through processes and drills. I just found that photo reading for me personally was more effective. And it also, I wasn't getting stressed about, oh, how many lines and have I gone zigzagged and have I done this and have I done that. I was able just to relax into it, because photo reading centers around being in a state of relaxed alertness and being in a state of flow. And it is also focusing on getting better left and right brain integration. So they're both aiming to do the same thing. And for me, photo reading was just a faster and more effective and more relaxing way for me to utilize the skill.
Love it, love it, love it. You know, I'm all about being in the flow. Whatever you do, if you have to push something, if you have to force yourself, usually it backfires, you get overwhelmed, you get tired, you give up easier. So this idea that you get into a natural flow, and it's kind of like a state of trance, if I understand right, and it just happens miraculously. I love that. And obviously it has probably some process to get there, but ultimately the process of photo reading sounds like a really amazing thing. So next question I have, a little bit, I would like to learn a little bit about, and our listeners to hear from you. How did you get into this? Like, what is the story behind your story? Because I really want to know. Usually, we get into something because something happens to us. So, share your story.
Oh gosh, now this one is a bit mind-blowing in terms of what happened. I was diagnosed with what was thought to be early onset Alzheimer's in my 20s, and my doctor had said there was nothing else he could do for me. And at the time I was studying to be a chartered accountant. Now, when I did my business degree a few years prior, because I was working like 4 jobs. And one of those jobs, I lived in a place called Coventry near Birmingham, for those who are from the United Kingdom. And I was traveling into London to do one of those jobs on a Saturday. Plus I was working evenings and I was working weekends. So it was very busy, and I'm doing a full-time degree. Even with all of that going on, I was still the person who could sit down, do what I needed to do and pass. And I was something like 1.6% or 1.3% away from getting a first class degree. So I knew how to kind of study. Then when what was thought to be the Alzheimer's hit, and I was studying to be a chartered accountant.
So it just happened like that. There was not a particular illness or anything. It just happened, right? Like,
I had a thyroid problem, and I had and that's a whole other story, but I had a very overzealous doctor, shall we say, who completely destroyed my thyroid gland. That led to a host of physical problems. And then the knock-on effect of all of those things, with both the physical and the mind stuff, that then just compounded on top of it. So there was a lot happening at the time. I was also very stressed at the time as well. So it all just seemed to be piling on. And I went from someone who was reasonably good at studying to someone who could read something 15 or 20 times and have absolutely no idea what it said. I mean, it was as though I'd never read it. And I was always the person who could get into an exam, finish the papers. And one of the exams, when I did my Chartered Institute of Marketing exams, I actually finished 45 minutes early and was just like, what's everybody doing?
That's after you learn PhotoReading, right?
Right before. Then the Alzheimer's thing hit, and I would be sitting in those exams looking at the paper and having no idea what I was reading. And I went from scoring, high 90s to getting 23% in my ACCA exams. And this is crazy. And I was studying, I was reading, and the defining moment when I thought, I need to go and see somebody about this. There were 2 defining moments. One of them was the ACCA books are big, they're like telephone books. So I used to write in pencil in the margin when I'd read something, put the date. So I'm reading this chapter. I start from the first page, never seen it before in my life. I went back to the beginning and I saw that I'd read it 5 times already. I was like, this isn't right. And there was an occasion one evening, I was reading this thing called the Radio Times. It's like the TV guide. So I'm reading the Radio Times. My then partner comes in. He wasn't trying to be difficult. He said, oh, what's on? Can I close it? I said, oh, hi, good evening. How are you? He said, oh, what's on tonight? And I said, I don't know. And he said, weren't you just reading the Radio Times? And I was like, yes, I was. And all I could say was, Coronation Street, EastEnders, because they were always on that particular day. And that's when I thought, this isn't right. And when I was at work, people would say something to me. I worked for an investment bank in the city, and I was renowned for having a list. The reason I had a list is you could say something to me right now. If I didn't write it down immediately, it was gone. Like con. And there were times where I was sitting at my desk terrified because I knew that somebody has asked me to do something, couldn't remember what they said if I hadn't written it down. So now I'd have to wait for them to go, hey, Marilyn, did you set up the call with Deutsche Bank? And I'd go, yeah, that's next on my list. And I go, I better set up the call. It was crazy.
Oh,
wow. Like, this isn't who I am. So went to my doctor, talked through everything that was going on, talked through all the symptoms. And that's when he said, yeah, this is presenting like early onset. I can't. He said, the only thing I can do for you, I can give you a medical certificate that you can send to the ACCA to see if they can give you extra time in your exams and see if that will help. And so I was the only person out of like 2,000 people at a place called the Barbican in London where they hold the exams. And I would be led in either half an hour earlier or I'd be there half an hour later. And still, I was looking at this information, which I loved when I was doing my degree. And I did A-level accounts as well. Couldn't make sense of it at all. And one day something came through the post saying, would you like to drink in information like you're reading it through a fire hose? Would you like to read 3 to 5 times faster? Would you like to be a master in your field? Would you like to be able to learn new topics and new and I was reading this and like, yes, yes, yes,
yes, yes.
And then I got to the bit, Millen, this is the truth. I got to the bit of the brochure where it talked about 25,000 words per minute, and I could feel myself shut down because I then went, ugh, it's some American, no offense to the Americans. I just thought, oh, this is some American nonsense. It's just high. But that said, I was so desperate that I actually paid the several £100, £200 or £300 at the time. I sent the money and I ordered what were the tapes. They were cassette tapes, and they actually sit on the shelf behind me for, I don't know if you can see that. Oh, that way.
Yeah, I can see them. It
So
seems like a different century, right?
Absolutely. This was in 1998. So I ordered the tapes, promptly I listened to the first one and just thought, this is ridiculous. Nobody can read at 25,000 words per minute. And they're talking about skittering and rhythmic perusal and rapid reading. I'm like, by the time I do all this, I might as well just read normally, as I put it. And so I'll be honest with you, they sat on the shelf for 2 years. Then I go to my NLP training, and I did you do practitioner, then you do the master practitioner. And if you want, you can become a trainer, which is what I eventually did. So I signed up for the NLP training by accident. That's a completely different story. And there's a test that you do beforehand, open book. You listen to the tapes, you read the books, fill out the test. Should be straightforward. Oh, goodness. Apparently, when I got to the training, they were saying behind the scenes, who is this Marilyn Devonish? She's either lazy or stupid, because my test was one of the worst that they'd ever seen. And it's open book. I had several months to do it. And I'm in the room, and the guy who's teaching the course, he's quoting names, dates, places, facts, figures, explaining all the processes. And somebody in the room just happened to say, how do you remember this stuff? And he said, oh, I read 20 to 30 books a month. At which point I leaned over to the woman who happened to be sitting next to me, now a very good friend of mine, lovely lady called Gina. And I said, well, he obviously doesn't get out much, because who can have a full-time job running the room? NLP is intense. And so then somebody says, how do you do that? And he pointed to the resource table at the back of the room, and he said, I photo read. And suddenly I went, I've got those tapes sitting at home gathering dust. And that's where I coined the term shelf development, where my bookshelf was more educated than me. So course of events, I went from hating NLP and hypnosis and timeline therapy and Huna and thinking it was a load of nonsense to falling in love with it. So I then decided to do the master practitioner 3 weeks later. The test is huge, and I'm in the middle of my ACCA exam. So I'm now split focus. I decided, rather than struggle through the test like I did with the practitioner, what I would do, because I was so limited for time, I would go to my bookshelf, dust off those tapes, and listen to them with an open mind, without being judgmental and saying, I've got a degree and a postgraduate marketing diploma and I know how to study, because that was my attitude. And I just thought, I'm just going to be open. I'm going to be open, and I'm just going to put everything I learn into practice. So I went back 2.5, 3 weeks later, handed in my test. My intention that I put into my timeline was that my test would be absolutely spot on, no corrections. They just come back saying, good job, well done. So it takes them a week to mark the test, and it's a 2-week course. Every single person had corrections except for one person. The one person who had no corrections was me. And in that moment, that's when I thought, the only thing I've done differently in the last 3 weeks was photo read. And that was the start of me going, this goes beyond mere chance. When I did my trainer's training in May 2001, it's an 8-hour exam. I put a goal in my timeline, I'd be finished in 3 hours. I didn't revise, I just photo read. I finished 3 hours on the money. I was the first person to finish. So he went from practitioner, who is Marilyn Devonish? She must be lazy or stupid. When I did trainer's training, they wondered if I had cheated, because apparently it was like reading the textbook. So that is the story behind thinking, I've got to learn to do this. So I jump on a plane in March 2002, and I went out to America to train with he's now Dr. Paul Sheely, to become an instructor. Because
and I want to ask you more about him. So I just want to interject something that is fascinating. And I had the goosebumps, seriously, when you were sharing your story. So number one, what I hear is the living in the state of stress can really create havoc in your brain, in your body. It's so dangerous. And someone who was successful and didn't even notice that you were so stressed out, and probably thyroid added to overall picture, suddenly develop earlier Alzheimer. So it's possible just with not major accident or something like that to develop this illness. Number one. Number two is it's possible to reverse it. Look, I mean, you are like what you're sharing is next to miraculous, because you were able not only to be normal, but you became like really excelling at reading and memorizing and stuff like that with the flow. And the fact that you didn't really take it seriously, that it was like you basically just had open mind. You know what? I don't know whether it works or not. I just want to give it a go. And that's it. So sometimes that's all it takes. When we don't believe that something is possible, sometimes all it takes is, you know what? Why not give it a go? Why not try something? And it seems like it was like literally miracle what you described. It's amazing and fascinating, and good for you that you were so open-minded and paying attention to what is happening. And even though it's these Americans, they sometimes over-exaggerate things. So speaking of Americans over-exaggerating, so who was the creator of this method, and what would you like to share about the founder? And I don't know if he's still around, and just talk about that with us.
His name is Dr. Paul Sheely. Actually, it's going to be really small. I'll hold it up, but that's Dr. Paul Sheely there. Whoops, okay. Other way. There we go. He's one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And he co-created this with a lady called Patricia Danielson. So they had the first conversation, and Paul decided then to continue studying. And he looked at child development, human psychology. He also he was around in the early days of NLP and hypnosis. So he started then and he also studied texts back to the 1800s about learning how to learn, about the mind, about the physiology, and put it all together in a system. Because he was a very slow reader and learner. He tried speed reading, it hadn't worked for him. And he said it really started when he had children. He's watching his boys grow up, and he realized that children are the best learners on the planet, because they come in and within a few months, they're actually starting to learn. And by the age of 7, they're, fully functioning human beings. And some of them are actually tiny little adults. And so he became curious and fascinated with what's going on there's something. How is it that children learn? And that was the thing that piqued his curiosity. So he started researching it. And back in 1985, an organization, they were called IDS, American Express. Now it's just American Express. But they heard about his research, and they said, look, we've got executives here who are drowning under the weight of paperwork and legislation. They just can't get through the data. We've heard about your work. Can you run a course for us? And back in those days, it was 5 days. And that was in 1985. So that's how the PhotoReading workshop was born. And since then, it's gone from 5 days to 4 days to 3 days to 2.5 days that it is now. And one of the reasons...
So are you saying that it only takes 2.5 days to learn how to do it?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
And if
2.5 full days, right? 2.5 full days.
Yeah,
so it's almost like a weekend, right?
Yeah, so typically I do a Friday evening, well, we do 3 p.m. till 8 p.m. And the final hour, I do a bonus Who session. That's a different conversation. And then we do 9:30 to 6:30 on a Saturday and a Sunday. And the webinar because I created a webinar version of it about 4 years ago, I ran it as I run the workshop. So people can do the webinar and it's available on demand and replay, etc. And so it's about 21 hours. And if I'm working with someone one-to-one, like doing online or Skype coaching, I would recommend that they allow about a good 4 to 6 hours to master the basics. But yes, it's something you can learn in a weekend. So he said when he arrived on site, they lead him into the boardroom and there's just piles of documentation. And he said he went gulp and really thought, can I do this? And the results were miraculous. And so, yeah, it's been around since 1985. And one of the reasons it's still 2.5 days at the moment is sleeping, which is just one of my favorite things, although I don't do it as much as other people. But you want 2 sleep cycles in there because you want to give your mind and brain a chance to assimilate the data and process what it's learning. But yeah, it's a weekend workshop. But Paul is just amazing.
Fascinating. Is he still alive?
Yes, he's alive and well. It's Win Wenger, who was in his 90s, who's just passed away. But Paul is alive and well.
Does he teach this as well, or what does he do now?
Not anymore. He's just completed his PhD in leadership and accelerated development, but he doesn't. When I did my training back in March 2002, Paul would teach the class twice a year, and that was the instructor training, so March and September. And so that meant you have a chance. It's a 2.5, it was when I did it, like a 2.5, 3-week course. But part of it was we would attend Paul's weekend workshop so we could both observe and be coaching people in the room. But it's not something he teaches so much himself anymore, but he teaches, people to become licensed instructors, which is what I did. Gosh, it's going to be 19 years ago this month now. So, yeah.
So thanks God that we have someone like you who continues teaching these amazing skills, because it's really a pity that I think it's like a gold, to have this skill. And it's interesting that he switched to leadership from teaching this amazing skill. So I'm very grateful that you committed to continue his legacy, so to speak, right? And help people with this, because so many people feel that they're slow readers. I personally think that I'm fairly slow reader, relatively, even though, with all the schooling that I've done, all the universities that I had to go through and licenses, I had to read quite a bit. But like you said, sometimes there were moments when I had to read 3 times, the same chapter, because I didn't get like the essence that I needed to remember. So amazing skill, absolutely fabulous. And I'm sure that many of people in our audience will be very curious how they can be like Marilyn, how they can read minimum 25,000 words per minute. I mean, to me, it's like, gosh, I don't know. You have to be some kind of like a superhuman to do that. But what I like is that I know that you're very talented, very smart woman, but at the same time, you're not like a, superhuman, so to speak. So if, I always see, if someone can do that, then I like to feel like I can do it, right? So for me, this story that you shared, how your journey started to being this super Marilyn now, it's very comforting, because I know that common people like myself can learn this skill as well. So my next question is, how people can contact you, what exactly can you offer them right now? So if you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. And one of the things I also want to say, over the years, I've had people with dyslexia, dyspraxia, brain inflammation, brain damage come to the workshop, and within 2.5 days, they are completely transformed. So I always say, open to anyone, regardless of their starting point, and really coming with an open mind is key. And in terms of how, of course, if we're watching this in real time, we're not running in-person workshops with the pandemic. But in 2016, I decided to run the photo reading as an online workshop. So the easiest way to get information is to go to my main website, which is, I'll say it and I'll spell it, and I know it's going to come up on screen as well.
Yes, it is already on the screen. I prepared it.
Wonderful. So it's transformationstm.com, and that's for those of you who might be listening. It's www.trance, TRANCE, as in hypnotic transformations, FORMATIONS, TM as in trademark. So transformationstm.com/photo reading. And there's the home study course, there's the in-person workshops when we get back to doing those, and there's also the full 2.5-day workshop is available as an on-demand video webinar workshop, which means you could get started as soon as today if you wanted to learn this skill for yourself. So that's how people can find out more.
That's fascinating. So basically now you're offering this online workshop, and do you do virtual workshops these days, or you just do this, offer this online workshop?
Occasionally, like whenever I'm rolling out a new workshop, I always run it live, so people can come and be in the audience, and I record it, and then that means that recording then can be the workshop. So as you probably know, Millen, I've got several topics that I've run, and depending on where we are, because I had a family who was flying in from Australia to take the photo reading workshop in March of last year. And we were just on the cusp of lockdown. We were in, we were out, and they went to the consulate. They said, yes, you can go to London. However, if the situation changes while you're there, we may not be able to let you back into the country. So what I did is I ran it as a live virtual class for them, where I was getting up at midnight and running it through the night until 8 o'clock in the morning. So I might do another fully live version, but there's an option where people can take the video webinar, and then we can do some live coaching to supplement what they're learning. But when I compared the feedback between in-person and the recording, people were having exactly the same experience, and exactly the same kind of mind-blowing realization. So there are options.
All right. So Marilyn, thank you so much. I'm fascinated with what you shared, with you, and with the services that you offer. And I just want to say, all of you who want to read beautiful books that we have available these days, and I like, sometimes I just want to swallow these books because I like some of them so much, and I want to, like right now I'm into Science of Consciousness. I just want to read one after another and nonstop. So if you want to gain this amazing skill of photo reading, contact Marilyn as soon as possible. You have a link on the screen, and take advantage of this opportunity, because if you can get this skill within 2.5 days, this is a gift for yourself. So take advantage of this opportunity. Marilyn, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. And for all of you who are watching us right now, I hope you will tune in to this show, Conversations with Experts, next week, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, Wednesday, on Dare to Change Life Facebook page. Thank you again. Have a beautiful day and a beautiful week. Take care. Bye now. Grow your wealth. Live on your terms.